Welcome back, friends, to the shop. I was listening to Vox Day's podcast a couple days back as we were on our way back home from the Wabder ride, and he was sharing a story that I'd never heard about, a World War II story about the German Luftwaffe that I thought was really fascinating. And I'm sorry, I don't know the names. I don't even know, I'm not familiar with the particular aircraft, but I can probably get the point across, and I think that kind of plays into what I want to discuss on today's video. So here is how I heard it. Take it for what it's worth. So there was a German Luftwaffe commander that was in charge of a squadron, and his job was to secure, I believe it was an airfield that was being held by the enemy. He was supposed to go in and strafe or bomb or whatever it was that he could do to soften it up so that when the troops came in and landed, they wouldn't meet such strong resistance. So apparently there was some issue with the scheduling, and they were over the target, and they were just rapidly reaching bingo, which is the point of where they have to turn back because of fuel. Well, he saw the planes coming in with the troops, and they had not been able to do anything with the defense. The defenses on the ground were strong, and essentially what was going to happen was they were going to annihilate his fellow soldiers. So he had to make a decision. What do you do in a situation like that? So what he did is he landed his plane, and he instructed all of his squadron, all of the men that were under his command, landed the plane and taxied over to the gun emplacements and used the powerful machine guns on the plane essentially as lightweight tanks to subdue the enemy and to make it a safe landing space for his fellow soldiers, right? I'm sorry, I've probably got half of it wrong, but I think we can kind of understand, you can kind of get in your mind's eye the picture of what took place, right? And the point of the story is why I'm sharing that with you is the importance of being able to think, well, to use the term, it's overused, but to think outside the box, right? To keep your mind elastic and keep your options available so that you can solve problems and to solutions that come up in your life. Because it's easier, I think it's easier to do these things when we're younger people. I can attest to that because Jack and I will we play video games together in the evening. He really likes that, and he wants me to play with him, so I play. So when we have a new game, for example, I find it's very difficult for me to learn the controls and all of the moves and everything, where he just picks it up just like this, right? He's so much quicker. Maybe it is that he's more intelligent than I am. I don't know. I think it has to do something with age. You just kind of get institutionalized. You kind of have a way of thinking about life, a way of thinking about things, and the older you get, it seems the harder it is to change those, right? So I love that story when I heard it from him, because that's such a powerful lesson to us when we're going through our daily life, whether it be dealing with relationships or just problems, mechanical problems. Sometimes you can just smash your head against the wall thinking you're not able to find a solution because you're not looking at it from a different perspective. That's the point of today's video. So that's going to tie into what we want to talk about today. How's that for a segue into a grease gun video? So you guys know that I was in excavating for a long time, right? And one of the tools that if you're in excavating that you are very, very familiar with is the grease gun, right? The grease gun is something that you have in your hand day and night. You're always greasing. And up to date, it's really an awful experience. It's a pretty terrible tool, and primarily because of the way it takes to load it, right? That's always been my biggest grief with it. I remember, so every single time, you're trying to get started on your job, and you got to grease the machine, and you're greasing, and you're just about done, and you're under that constant anxiety. Am I going to have enough grease in this thing? Is it going to run out? Do I have to go through the process of changing it, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? And sure enough, every time, and you do. And then you got to take the thing off, and you got to pull the spring back, and then you got grease all over everything, grease all over your hands. You got to find the tube. It's a nightmare. It really is a terrible, terrible design. Well, the Germans have figured out a better way. Let me show you. All right, you guys would probably get a kick out of this. So I remember I did that huge unboxing maybe a month or two ago, and someone had sent me some grease guns, right? I pulled them out, and I'm like, oh, these are cool, man. These are made in Germany, and I was thinking to myself, well, that's that's nice and all, but I already have a grease gun, and how many grease guns does the guy use, right? So I mean, I never thought about it again. I just assumed that they were just like every other grease gun that I'd ever used before, and I wasn't super enthusiastic about the whole thing, right? Well, these are made by Lube Shuttle, and they sent me, I mean, I don't know who sent them. This is not a paid endorsement. They just asked if they could send them. And then, so he sent me an email a couple of days ago and asked me if I liked the grease guns. Well, I couldn't really respond because I hadn't used them, and I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean, they're grease guns, right? I mean, what's there to like about it? I was cleaning up over the shop today, and I came across that box, and I thought I should probably take a look at those and see. They're totally different. It's a whole different system. I've never seen it before. Completely different than the traditional ones. In that, I mean, right here, the simple thing about it is the cartridge, right? So this is our standard grease gun cartridge that we've all loathed and hated for so long, right? You've got the plastic cap on the top, and you got the grease in there, and then you've got all that airspace, and so it's always a problem priming the thing. And then you got this little deal right there, and you pull that off like a pop top, and it's all greasy, and you got to deal with that, and and then they're cardboard, right? So you can't keep them anywhere. If they get in the rain, they get all soft and squishy. You can't have them in the back of your truck because they roll around and get smashed, and then they no longer fit in the cylinder. Now you have a huge mess. I mean, right? I mean, just on and on and on. Well, I picked these things up out of the box, and the first thing I thought, good grief, they didn't even put any caps on the bottom of them. Someone must have forgot to bring the caps on it. And I was looking at them like, surely not. I mean, it doesn't even have any threads on it. It doesn't even look like it receives a cap. And I was thinking, is this thing made right? And then they sent this box of greases, right? The tubes, which I opened and looked at, but I was just looking at the bottom, so I didn't see the difference. Look at the top right there. This has a little screw cap on it. This is gonna blow your mind, man. It blew my mind. So what you have is a plastic tube that's not going to squish out and get all smashed and ruined and wet. And it doesn't, these don't use a bottom. Wait till you see this. You're not going to believe it. The first thing I said was, where's this been all my life? These tubes thread directly onto the grease gun like that, and there you have it. This here is nothing more than basically, I mean, these are plastic threads, so if you were to push hard on this, it's gonna pull it out. This is nothing but just a protector to give you some strength and some rigidity. I mean, to be honest, if you're just doing this yourself and greasing your machine, you don't even need this thing. And that makes a very nice, lightweight, no grease all over your hand, no grease all over your shop, no grease everywhere, greasing system. I mean, check that out. How cool is that? I couldn't believe it. So I haven't used these yet, but let's see how they prime. And that's the other thing, is priming these things can always be a problem. Like I've never once been able to you get a newbie, a new guy, give him one of these at work for him, or even Jack, and say, hey, can you go change the grease? They can't do it. It gets an airlock in it. They don't know what to do. You end up doing it yourself. I read an interesting stat that they've done studies on the cost, the economics of greasing equipment, what the expense is, greasing versus not greasing and all that. And the literature that I read said that 80% of the cost of greasing equipment is consumed in changing the cartridges. Isn't that amazing? And I'm not surprised at all. We'll do a little comparison because this one's empty. We'll do a change side by side and we'll see the difference. But how cool is this? So I read the instructions. So what it said to do, and I don't really know about all these greases. There's all sorts of them here. I don't even know what's what. For me, I'm just kind of a shade tree guy. I guess grease is grease. I'm just greasing my tractor and stuff. So I'll just go with what with what I have. But here's what they said. So you can push this in there, up there, and you push the air out, right? Do you see how that came out? And then thread it in. And I find this hard to believe that this thing will prime by itself. I'll bring you up here a little closer here so we can see it. All right, so I pushed a little grease up there in the tip, here, like this. So this is, so you can see better. You take the cap off, and then I just pressed it up kind of like that so it was sticking out a little bit like toothpaste. And then I just screwed it in there. And we'll see how fast does it prime. Oh, I can already feel it. I can feel it. Look at that. So that primed immediately in what, 5 pumps? That's pretty nice. All right, now let's do it to the old-fashioned way. I'm going to give it every advantage, even a garbage can at hand, which of course you're never going to have out in the field. Okay, so let's see what the process is for the old school one. First, you pull back the plunger. You unscrew it. Take this greasy thing out, and now I've got it all over my fingers, and I got to find a place for it. It's all covered with grease on the inside and the outside, so I just rub it on my pants, which makes our wives very happy. We pull the plunger back, take the new grease tube, take off the bottom, pop the caps. Now we've got, look at that. It even fit. And it dripped on the ground. Oh my goodness. Now I got to take my knife out and run the risk of breaking the tip off to get this thing off. Now not only do I have the greasy tube to deal with and the high probability I'm going to cut my finger, I got to deal with this thing too. And you know, easy here when you have a garbage can. I got grease on my knife. And of course the end is mashed, so that's going to give us a problem. And then I got to remember which way it goes. Thread it back on. Push the plunger in. It's coming out, but it's full of air. I can feel it. Yeah, look at all the waste too. I mean, to do this. There we go. Finally. But that's a process, right? It's not. I mean, it's not near as nice. And that went pretty well. That's someone that's experienced. But still, I've got this big globber on the ground now. I've got to clean up and got to go get shop towels and. Good grief. Looks like a root beer freeze. Probably slip on this and break my collarbone. I've got to say, these lube shuttles are just awesome. I mean, it just is a game changer. I can't believe I didn't know about this. They sent two. They sent one, the regular one with a long handle, which is a little bit heavier duty. If I was, like greasing big excavators and stuff, I'd use that. But I've come to like the one-handed one. I like this one better because this is like the Lincoln that I bought this spring, because it's just, you can use it with one hand, it's quicker, you can put these things on, and it just works better. That little whip is nice and handy, and it's probably half the weight of this big old monster right here. They also, if you guys haven't used these things, they sent one, this is their brand, it's I don't know, I guess it's a Lube Shuttle, it just says made in Germany, but where they lock on to your Zerk. They are fabulous. I've been using the ones, these are made in South Africa. These are who makes these? The Lube and Lock. You probably see these. I always have them at Napa. They're good too. But this one's, just little details are important on these tools. That's what sets Snap-on apart from, all your other tools. It's the little details that just make a difference when you're working with your tools for a living. And if you haven't used them, and if all you know is the price, then you just don't understand that, because there is a difference in them. But just look this, for example. This thing rotates. You find yourself, you're in a tight spot, and these have quite a memory in them. They're hard to turn. You end up having to twist the whole gun around. To be able just to rotate that around, that's really thinking. I mean, that's designed by someone who's actually spent time greasing a piece of equipment and wants to make a guy's life easier. I really appreciate little details like that. And as good as a Lock and Lube is, it doesn't do that, right? So that's kind of interesting. Just a couple other things that stand out to me. on these old ones, you just never know when it's empty. I mean, it's a hassle. If you have a piece of equipment and you have to walk down the hill over a canyon and you don't know how much is in there and you grab a tube and then what do you do with the tube? I mean, you know, the whole drill. How do you possibly know? You're not going to take it apart and look at it. Who does that? You don't want to get all greasy. These guys, you can simply look in the bottom. I can look in the bottom, it's open all the time, and I can see I'm at 50% or whatever. I can grab a tube. I could actually put this in my pocket or in the toolbox, and it's not going to come out and just make a huge mess. You could put this in your glove box. It's not going to, you know, it's threaded. It's got a cap on it. It's all plastic. It's weatherproof. It's not going to get grease all over you, and the bottom's closed, right? So just little things like that just mean a lot. Just make life easier. I just didn't realize, and the point why I shared that story with you about the Luftwaffe commander was, this is a perfect example. We've always done something a particular way, and we'll always do it the other way, and there's no better way of doing it. Well, leave it up to the master race. You know, they came up with a better way. They don't call them a master race for nothing. And as a benefit, right here, you can see there's actually IKEA-like pictures, instructions on the tube. So if you've got a noob, right, and you don't have time to explain everything to everyone all the time, you can throw them a tube and you're like, look at the pictures. This would be really helpful to my East Coast subscribers because they are heavily challenged with complex problems like filling grease guns. So you guys would appreciate this more than most. Oh, were you offended by that comment? I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. So in wrapping up, I have to say that for like the first time in my life, I'm actually excited to go grease something because it's not going to be a big process. So thanks to whoever sent these Lube Shuttle. What would be kind of cool, I don't know if Lube Shuttle's watching or not, but if you are, what would really be cool is if you could offer up maybe a dozen or so of these as a giveaway to our subscribers, or whatever you're willing to offer. That would be kind of a cool thing. So you can email me, Cody@Wranglerstar.com. You already have my email. I think someone sent one to me. If you're open to do something like that, give back to the community, and it would be goodwill towards all men, we would appreciate that. So I am a big fan. I'm going to give this one to Brian. I don't believe he has a grease gun. And, well, know what? I'll keep this one. I'll give him, I can't be so tight-fisted. I'll give him the big Lube Shuttle. I do want to keep the one-hander one to myself. Maybe he'll win one. Who knows? All right. Well, thanks for watching. Keep us in your prayers, and we'll see you all on the next video.